Welcome to Fight News Now. I'm your host, John Pollock. Lots to come on today's show. We are going to be going back and taking a look at the UFC's card from Chicago on Saturday night, as well as boxing action and much more, and a look ahead to UFC 201. All that and more coming your way on today's edition of Fight News Now. I'm here with John Ramdeen and Robin Black coming out of the UFC's card from Saturday night in Chicago, Illinois, headlined by Valentina Shevchenko defeating Holly Holm. I think a lot of people would look at this as an upset, but you certainly saw a game plan initiated by Shevchenko and Holly Holm just not being able, I think, to adjust to the countering style of Shevchenko. Were you surprised at all by Holly Holm's performance?
What I was surprised at was how flat she looked. She did not look like she was on her A game. You look back at her performances when she first came into the UFC, her fight against Ronda, and even her fight against Misha just didn't seem to be the same motivated, speedy, mobile Holly Holm. And I think that's, you have to give credit to Shevchenko because she was able to throw Holly Holm off of her game. She landed throughout this fight in areas that I don't think Holly Holm expected Shevchenko to land, and because of that, Holly Holm just was trying to play catch up for the rest of the match.
And there you see in round one, Holly Holm pushed forward and had a bit of success pushing forward, something she doesn't do that much. See the right uppercut, the lead uppercut as part of that combination pushing forward. And then oddly, after Shevchenko sort of threw a few kicks to take over that range, she made Holly push forward through the rest of the fight. Holly works best when moving laterally, inviting you and intercepting you when you come forward. Think Stephen Thompson. But instead, Shevchenko made her push, and all of a sudden she won round one. Round two and round three, she lost them, and now had to pursue for the rest of the fight. So Shevchenko, everyone knew, Holly knew, her team knew that she was a good counterpuncher, but what they didn't realize was Shevchenko would have the ability, you see it right there, to force Holly to be the one to pursue. That was super cool. It was some slick stuff. There's a science. Fighting is a science, but it's also art. And you must be able to adjust to the different brush strokes and the different beats, and she just couldn't do it. It was a really brilliant performance by Shevchenko.
I was very impressed as well at Shevchenko's patience. Like, here was someone that could have just got into the heat of the moment, seen Holly Holm was kind of not moving a whole lot, but instead she waited for Holly to come to her because Holly was creating her own mistakes and Shevchenko was capitalizing on the majority of them.
I think one of the reasons why is because Shevchenko is a martial arts champion. She has a lot of experience, and I look at just like how we felt when Holly Holm made her way into the UFC and she had her first couple of fights that it was kind of a dress rehearsal for Ronda Rousey. I think that was the case for Shevchenko because of, you look at the way her UFC career has unfolded, taking a fight on short notice, and then losing that fight, a decision to the current champion, and then thrown into this main event fight against the former champion only 3 fights in. She's faced very tough opposition. Sarah Kaufman, former Strikeforce champion, Amanda Nunes, the current bantamweight champion, and Holly Holm, the former champion. She's just trying to figure out exactly what the right formula and the right recipe, and it feels like she's figured it out.
You want to see the exact same fight? You want to just look at the exact same fight from a meta perspective, from a 30,000 feet perspective? Go watch Jose Aldo just beat Frankie Edgar. They would have prepared, Edgar's team, Mark Henry would have prepared for Jose to be pushing forward. He's done that for the last number of years, almost his entire UFC career. Everybody who's fought him, every coach has been dealing with him pressuring you and kicking your legs and driving forward. That's what Holly was expecting from Shevchenko. And instead it was flipped. All of a sudden Jose is retreating and countering just like Conor did to him. And Shevchenko is dealing with range and making Holly chase her. Exact same scenario. We hadn't seen that game played against the movement fighter, against the lateral movement fighter, and we've just seen it twice in a couple of weeks.
One of my questions is this good for women's 135 pounds? We've seen, since Ronda, you have Holly and Misha and now Amanda Nunes, and if you're objective and you remember how that fight with Amanda Nunes went down and Shevchenko was coming on at the end of that fight. Yes, Amanda Nunes won round 1 and 2, but the third round was Shevchenko, and if it was a championship fight. Now, of course, it's just speculation, but we just saw what Shevchenko has been capable of, or what she is capable of, over 5 rounds. Would we see her win that third round and 4th and 5th is this a good thing for 135 pounds?
Well, look at how this division has been thrown on its ear.
Yeah.
Where earlier this year, you had that golden triangle that was Miesha Tate, Holly Holm, and Ronda Rousey. Yet the three names that are around that title now are the champion Amanda Nunes, Valentina Shevchenko, and Juliana Pena.
Yeah.
I mean, there is just an area code, multiple area codes of difference between the levels of stars and what you're looking at is probably your next title fight.
Yeah.
Is Juliana Pena kind of the unofficial winner of Saturday night? Because she could very well find herself because of the fact that Nunes just fought Shevchenko.
Yeah, I mean, I think so, but you do have the storyline. You have that Amanda Nunes has defeated Shevchenko, and Shevchenko doing what she did to Holly Holm. I think a lot of people would be interested in seeing that rematch. And don't forget, all it takes is a phone call for Ronda Rousey to say, hey, I'm back in the game. Exactly, the X Factor. And another X Factor is still Miesha Tate, even though she lost to Amanda Nunes. Because we've seen her so many times, we consider her a champion, whether it's Strikeforce, the UFC. She's a name. People want to see her fight. They know what she's capable of. You can see how the UFC could throw her in the mix as well.
Yeah, is it just me, or do you notice that in this division they often go, oh, well, that person doesn't deserve it. Actually, like Miesha was saying that, oh, Holly, she doesn't deserve it. And then the next thing you hear, she's like, well, actually, if Amanda's who they put in front of me, then that's who I'll fight. Like, there's a lot of that game being played here. But one thing we can dispel, if you talk to Joe Silva or Sean Shelby, they have no predisposed preference. Yeah. The business, the bosses sometimes may, but even they've been doing this for so long that they can't go, well, if this person wins. It's just, especially Silva, because he's such a pragmatist, he's such a scientist. He looks at it and he's like, if this wins, we'll figure out the next fight. If she wins, if he wins, they don't care. They really don't, because they can't care. If they cared, these people would have had heart attacks 10 years ago. So they just let it unfold.
Let's discuss some of the other big action that went down on Saturday night. Edson Barboza adding another big name to his list of victories, and that being Gilbert Melendez. Melendez did have that moment in the first, kind of stunning Barboza, who responded very well, attacking the legs of Gilbert Melendez. This, along with Anthony Pettis, two big wins for Edson Barboza, but it does create an interesting dynamic at the top of that division where Eddie Alvarez is the 155-pound champion, but there's no shortage of fights there at that top mix at 155.
Too many great fights. You can understand how Barboza would want a rematch with Tony Ferguson, because, you know, the way that fight unfolded, it was a great matchup. Barboza was winning, and then Ferguson caught him. But you look at this match, it almost felt like Gil kind of gave this fight away because he allowed Barboza to use his kicking range. It felt that when Gil Melendez was in boxing range, he was doing very, very well. But once it was the outside, it was Barboza's fight.
But let's say outside of boxing range is a nebulous range. We can call it 5. Into kicking range is 4. That's that range you can kick at. 3 is where you can box. 2 is the deep pocket, and 1 is when you're chest to chest. To get to 3, where Gil wanted to be, or 1, where we saw him there, you must pass through 4. And that 4 is a hot range. That kicking range is a hot range. So psychologically, even the toughest guy in the whole division, one of the toughest guys in the game, Gil, if you wreck that leg, you keep hitting it with a baseball bat, he'll hesitate moving in closer. Also, you see, Barboza will kick and move away. So he makes you, right there, kick and move away. So now you have to pursue again. When you pursue again, he'll kick you again and he'll move away. So he created that environment. Plus, Gil, hey man, like people talk about limited mobility when you get kicked in the leg. Imagine not only that, to deliver power, you have to put weight on your legs. You have to use your feet in the ground, through your knees, through your hips, through your core. He's not able to deliver power. He's not able to pursue. Dude has the biggest heart in the world, though.
Last thing before we wrap up, Dan Henderson did an interview over the weekend and stated that win or lose against Michael Bisping, he is retired. Do you like this idea of him going for the title, knowing that win or lose, this is it?
100%, because, you know, I read a lot of people out there. I read a lot of things with people saying that Dan Henderson doesn't deserve this title shot, blah, blah, blah. It's because of everything that Dan Henderson has done throughout his career. He's a pioneer. He's a UFC tournament champion, 2-time Pride champion, Strikeforce champion. He knocked out Michael Bisping. Of course it makes sense. He knocks out Michael Bisping, becomes the UFC middleweight champion, and gets to retire.
We never seen anyone retire a champion like that on that fight. Let's let him go for it.
UFC 201 is coming up next, and we will have a 1-hour preview show Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, counting down to Robbie Lawler and Tyron Woodley for the welterweight gold.